Um, and eat smaller fish. You know, fish like tuna have been so overfished, swordfish as well, for so long that their populations are in real decline. Pollutants that are in the ocean build up in their tissues, and then you eat that when you eat them. And that's not great, especially if you're a woman and you want to have children one day. So eating smaller fish is much healthier because, especially if they're um, you know, small fish that eat plants, because they're not building up those heavy metals through the food chain. So
Hmm.
there's things that you can do to have, you know, to still eat seafood and eat it locally and eat it in a way that isn't harming the ocean. Um, and that's important. I think it's also important to understand, though, that even if we can choose to, you know, have a plant-based diet, or we can choose to go vegan as a very like real way to make sure that we're not part of that problem, there's people around the world that can't. There's communities in Africa and Asia and Latin America that really don't have a choice, that fish is their source of protein, and it's a way for children to get the nutrition they need to have healthy minds and healthy bodies and develop properly. So we're never going to stop fishing. And I think it's really important when I talk about fisheries, people have, you know, their eyes glaze over because fisheries policy is just boring by default, right? but but that's where the decisions are made. And so, you know,
Right.
if you see an article about it, you know, take a look, learn about how subsidies are fueling overfishing, or if, you know, a politician that you really like has a position that you care about on oceans. Because that's where these decisions are being made, and it's hard work to create that change when nobody's paying attention.
Exactly.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
think, and I
and
think that's where I feel like good about that we have, like, recently I feel like there's a little more attention towards that, topic, and with, documentaries like this, and then that people, and the straw thing, like as I said, was like, a bigger movement where I feel like people really started to, shine a light on this a little bit.
Well, and there's a wonderful way that your fans can help drive this conversation, and
Hmm.
that's if you go to a coffee shop and they give you, you know, a plastic cup for your smoothie with a plastic straw in it. Um, Leave a review. You know, you can, and it doesn't have to be nasty review. It can just be like, you know, I loved my smoothie from this coffee shop. I just wish they hadn't given me a plastic cup with a plastic straw. That's really not great, and I hope they change it. You know, it can
Right.
be kind and honest. But if enough people leave reviews like that, people who own these businesses will change, you know,
Yeah.
and they'll start eliminating single-use plastic from their supply chains. And that's a very powerful tool that we have. It's Google reviews, you know.
Right.
yeah, and the small thing everybody can do. Like it's not something big which you don't have any influence on, but you can change this in your everyday life. Just stop using plastic and try to eat as less fish as you can, right?
Yeah.
Because the documentary Bill talked about, because of that, like I stopped eating meat for like 5 years now, but I ate fish from time to time. And then I watched this documentary and I said, no, I can't eat a fish anymore. Like I stopped eating this like for now half a year. But
Yeah.
I would like to know more about this documentary. What's your opinion about it? Because I read a lot of articles about it afterwards, and not all of them are pretty good. So what is your opinion about that
Oh,
documentary?
well, I think that it's great that this documentary shows the dark side of overfishing. It's
Hmm.
really um, it's really dark. It involves, you know, it's basically piracy. It's modern day piracy, um, and it's awful. It does awful things to our oceans, and it can also do awful things to the crew. You know, oftentimes crew members on these ships are slaves, or, you know, might as well be. Sometimes they're children. But bad practices aren't just on the fishing ships. You know, the shrimp farms that have proliferated to feed our insatiable appetite for shrimp. They rip out mangroves. They use child labor. Um, they are horrible polluters of the ocean as well. There's a lot of bad practice. But what I want to emphasize is that it's not only bad practice. you know, the filmmaker for Seaspiracy and Cowspiracy is a vegan activist. And so one of the criticisms that, and that the scientists who were interviewed by him had about the way that their interview was shown was that he cut out all of the parts where they talked about the innovation and the positive things that people are doing and the efforts that are being made to change this system. And I think that's too bad because, you know, stopping to eat fish isn't an option for everybody. And so those people that will continue to eat fish need to know what they can do to eat better options. And those better options exist. And so I think that was the unfortunate side of Seaspiracy is that, you know, veganism is a great alternative. Plant-based diets, wonderful. Vegetarianism, that's the choice I made, you know, and my family makes. But it's not for everybody. And having sat at the table, and maybe you have had this experience too, having sat at the table, you know, at a restaurant and watching somebody eat something that I know is like pretty much endangered or was probably pirated or, you know, and what do you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you say? Usually nothing, but when I do say something, it doesn't change their choice.
Yeah.
So we have to respect that and make sure that we innovate to make sure that people can eat fish that are healthy for them and, you know, not harming the oceans. And fish, you know, fishing is as old as we are. Fishing has been around, and aquaculture too, for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So there's nothing inherently wrong with fishing. It's how we fish that is deeply wrong and devastating to the ocean. So that's, I think it's the good news, and we need to be aware of what the good that's happening too, is that yes, like there's terrible things that are happening, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed and depressed about that. And I grieve for all of those things on a regular basis because, you know, it's my job to know them. But there's also a lot of good that's happening, guys. And it's important to talk about that as well, because there are people who are pouring their life into finding solutions and making those solutions available to us. And participating and contributing to those solutions is where we can create the change, because the change is hard. And I've spent the last 10 years, even as a non-fish eater, trying to influence fisheries to be, you know, more restorative for the oceans and more responsible. And it's hard. It's really hard. And so having people be part of this, you know, contributing and talking and watching the documentaries and feeling invested is really important. And when you're invested, you find ways to contribute, you know, like you guys are. We're having this talk now.
And like, is there something, like, if the people that are watching right now and gonna watch this later, is there something that they can support Oceans 2050? Is there something they can get involved in the future?
Oh yes. so we started about 3 years ago. My husband and I and a friend of ours, Professor Carlos Duarte, who I think is probably the foremost expert on marine biology and ocean restoration right now. And he wrote a peer-reviewed scientific article for Nature last year that was published that really lays out a roadmap for how we can rebuild our oceans. And so we started with seaweed because that's sort of the biggest catalyst, but there's a lot more work to be done on corals and so many other things. And what we're working on now is really making that restoration effort something that everybody can participate in and contribute to in meaningful ways. So we're going to be rolling those out and announcing them, you know, over the course of the next few months, because it's tremendously exciting what technology and allows us to do, the digital tools that are available to us. I mean, I'll give you an example. Just 30 years ago, when I first really started studying ocean issues and looking at overfishing, it felt to me like we would never be able to get eyes in the middle of the ocean to track these illegal fishing fleets, that just fish 24/7 every day of the year, just emptying the ocean. And it felt like it was a problem that was so far away and out of sight that we'd never be able to get a handle on it. But now, there's multiple initiatives where you can act, and it's open to the public, like Global Fishing Watch. You can go there and you can see fishing ships, where they are in the ocean, what they're doing, and artificial intelligence lets you track them and see where they're going and analyze how they're moving through the water to see if they're actually illegally fishing in a marine protected area. And these tools are allowing us to do things that we never would have imagined were possible just 20 or 30 years ago. And that's really exciting. And now, just members of the public are starting to go and participate in analyzing this data and helping to figure out who's illegally fishing and reporting them. And little tiny countries that were never able to fight these poachers and pirates before now
so
have
cool.
the information they need to take their ship and slap them with a fine and confiscate their catch. So that's empowering, and
Cool. Yeah.
and that's what digital tools can do for us. And so I have a lot of hope that that these new innovations and these new technologies, these young people and their startups and their creativity is going to change it, so that we can get on a new pathway to rebuild our oceans and our land and this beautiful planet that we live on.
That's amazing. Maybe we can share some of the websites too, Georg, and just put them, in
Yeah,
our story.
we put that in our story, and everybody listening here should follow Oceans 2050 to get all the latest news and facts and support you with your
Do we
with the
have
programs.
some? I know that
We have
people
some
sent.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we see if there's like something we didn't cover yet that people really want to know?
Let me see if I can find some questions. Here's a good one.
It's amazing. You have fans here from all over the world.
I know.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's incredible.
That's amazing.
Do you guys see the question or no?
No.
It's like the question is, a lot of sustainable subs can be expensive. How can you made a difference of affordability?
That's a great question, and affordability is something that is a real concern. Helping to protect our world shouldn't be something that only the rich can do. But I think what's exciting for me is that there's a lot of options now that make it possible for everyone to buy products that are good for them and their health and good for the planet. Oftentimes, at supermarkets, if you buy in bulk and you bring your own containers, those products are not more expensive. In fact, they can be cheaper. And organic is something that's becoming really ubiquitous now. And we find organic products in every supermarket that we go to, even the big ones that never had them before. And it's important, I think, also to understand that when we cook our own food, even if it's not organic, we're leaving out so much of the chemicals that are included in the packaged food and the processed food. And that, by default, is better for us and better for the planet. When we highly processed food has a bigger carbon footprint, it's been through more processes, there's more chemicals and preservatives. And finally, I think for beauty products, that's a big one, especially for women, because we're putting creams on our face and makeup and eyeliners and all sorts of products that go right into our skin. And that can be really toxic sometimes. And there's great resources online. So the Environmental Working Group is a wonderful resource. They rank products, commonly used products, both for food and for beauty and sunscreens, by how toxic they are, and they give it a ranking. So for example, with your vegetables, and I don't remember exactly what it is, there's the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. And that's basically the idea that for some fruits and vegetables, you don't need to use pesticides. So you can buy conventional and they're not going to have more pesticides than organic because they're just not needed, when you're growing them. But then there's others like strawberries that require a lot of pesticides. And so if you're going to eat strawberries, it's better to buy organic strawberries just because, you're investing in that product because you know that it's going to be pretty toxic if you buy conventional. So for those people who are interested, it's the information is there. Environmental Working Group is a great resource, but there's other resources as well. And that can help you figure out which of the brand names are good and which ones aren't.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's maybe a website and we can share too afterwards. Yeah, I think it's a lot, Georg. I think it's a lot about like also the effort a little bit, so bringing your own container and reusing stuff and cooking for yourself and cooking, fresh. I think that's just also like sometimes we're pretty lazy with things, what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we all are. I think that sometimes it's just really like remembering and be like, no, I'm not gonna just get another thing. Like I'm gonna bring my own bag, I'm gonna bring my own cup or whatever it is, or no, I'm cooking fresh and I'm not just buying the shitty stuff because it's faster and easier,
Well, and yeah, I think the other thing to really think about is buying local. Supporting the farmers in your community and reducing the carbon footprint of your food. Because I mean, there's in the United States, the average number of miles that food travels to get to your plate is 1,200 miles, which is an insane distance. And that's just the average, because we're eating avocados from Mexico and macadamia nuts from Brazil. And so, even if you're a vegan, the carbon footprint of your food can be huge.
Huge, yeah.
And so one of the most important things I think we can do, because climate change impacts our ocean so much and impacts, how creatures live in the ocean and whether they're able to live at all, is climate change. And so food is a way that we can really reduce our footprint and support our local community.
Great. I'm sorry. I'm still looking for a lot of people are again asking what they can do. Let me tap this question and see if you guys can see this now.
I see some sticker in the corner. Q&A.
You see that or no?
Yeah.
No. Oh, you see the question?
Yeah, like could you recommend us?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another question. Like a lot of people are asking this again, like what are simple things that everybody can do at home and like to contribute to all of this?
So great question. And I think there's a lot that we all can do. I think, reducing plastic to a maximum, whether it's bags or whether it's, bottles. We have a water filter at home because the tap water doesn't taste great. So rather than buying bottled water, we installed just a little, $100 water filter, and it works fine. So there's little changes that we can do in our everyday practices like that, like reducing plastic waste, buying in bulk, using your own little bags to buy in bulk with and put your groceries in, buying organic when you can, when it's important for the products like strawberries that can be really toxic otherwise. And I love strawberries. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bagging on strawberries. It's just better to get them organic. And think about, the care of your skin and your food and what you put in your body. And if it's not good for the planet, it's probably not going to be good for you. So like you said, cooking your own food and cutting down on packaged and highly processed food and supporting the people in your community that are trying to do it right.
Yeah, I think we have
an organic farmer out here in the French countryside who, is right down the road, and he has a little farm and he does permaculture, and so we go there and we buy our eggs from him, and the eggs are the same price as the supermarket. But we're supporting him and his chickens, and it's great. It feels great.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot, people can
That's
do.
a lot you can do. Yeah.
These are amazing small tips you just, you can do in your everyday life.
And
Just
I
small
personally always think like when people ask me why are you like vegetarian, why don't you eat meat, fish, and I'm like, you need to think about what you're eating. It's okay if you eat fish, it's okay if you eat meat, but be aware of what you do.
Yeah,
Like
where it
you,
comes from.
yeah,
Yeah.
where does it come from? What are like the consequences of eating this right now? And it's okay. And I feel like everybody is okay eating fish and meat if he's responsible eating this.
Yeah, and I've heard people, share their concern that eating, grass-fed, organic, locally raised beef might be more expensive, or free-range chicken is more expensive. Um, so eat it less often, but enjoy it when you do, and invest in making sure that that animal wasn't living in horrible conditions and eating a disgusting diet and polluting the
Yeah.
environment around it, which is where the price comes in. If you eat less of it, you can eat better quality when you do, and I think that's something that's important for our own health.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Is there something else, Georg, or otherwise?
Yes, here's another
Yeah.
good question. Is there a way to be kind of a volunteer for your project?
Oh, that's an awesome question. We do actually have some volunteers. We're a small team, um, but we do have interns and fellows and volunteers working for us. And you can just reach out to us through the Oceans 2050 website, which is oceans2050.com. And there's a form that you can fill out, and it goes to our team, and they respond to those requests. And if we can find a spot in the project that we're working on that kind of fits with what you want to do and your skill set and your interests, then yeah, we've had some wonderful interns and volunteers who've really helped us a lot.
Amazing.
This sounds great.
Cool. Yeah, I think I wanted, like, that's a lot. I always feel like that's a lot of information for people to process. I think we covered like a really, really
A lot.
like
Yeah.
questions. Yeah, no, I always know myself, like I'm sometimes like you get so overwhelmed, but I think the good thing is that especially like what you guys are doing, it's not just shining a light on how bad everything is, it's also very positive because there are solutions and you guys are working on this and you have amazing projects you're working on. And I think that just like to be hopeful and like have these little changes you can do, but also get information and get involved with, projects like you guys do. I think that's just hopeful and like makes you feel good.
Well, our chief scientist, who's a marine biologist, he said to us not so long ago, he said for a lot of things, marine biology has taken us as far as we can go. Mm-hmm. Now we need everyone to be part of thinking how we fix these problems and apply technology and engineering and all of these different skill sets that people have to figuring out how we rebuild. Because we need all of those skill sets. It's not just marine biology anymore for the oceans. It's all of us contributing what we can.
Right. 100%. Thank you so much for taking the time, like talking to us. And like, that was just very interesting to me. Thanks for everyone that joined us here today and for the.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you and the best of luck. Hi.
Hey.
Hi. Ich wollte mal kurz das Gesicht zu der Stimme stellen vom letzten.
Yeah. Hi.
Sehr gut. Hi, wie geht's? Yeah, thank you so much for explaining everything. It's an amazing project, and we're gonna share the websites and like some more information for people to check out. And we wish you the best of luck with everything.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.
So nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.